I'm Kimberly C. Paul. As I travel throughout each state, I realize that death is just a moment. It is how we live until that moment that matters. Finding connection with friends, family, and complete strangers. Journey with me. This is the Live Well, Die Well Tour. So I'm really excited today to introduce you. If you don't know her, you need to know her. Emma Payne, she's the founder and CEO of Grief Coach, which is this amazing platform that I've gotten to know really well over the past couple of weeks that I think everyone needs to know about. Welcome to the show, Emma. It's great to see you again.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you. You're one of my last pre-pandemic
events. Yes. Yeah. I was just talking to someone else from the event earlier today, and that was the last live event, which was like February 8th, 2020.
Right.
Amazing that it's almost been a year.
Yep.
Well, I have to say, I'm really impressed by you and what you are doing on this platform. And, you know, we know each other, and I knew about this, but only when, I invite people onto this podcast do I feel like I'm like a investigative journalist and I'm digging back the layers. I'm just so amazed of what you've created through this Grief Coach. But before we go there and really talk about what Grief Coach is doing for people, I'm just interested in how did you arrive in even thinking about creating this?
Yeah, it was, like everybody who works in grief and loss, there's a sad story, right? Yeah. So what happened was that my friend was dying, and I was very much a part of his end of life, and it was difficult. He had cancer. I was with him when he died. A few weeks before he died, he had asked me to deliver the eulogy at his funeral. And of course, when you're sitting by somebody's bedside, you say yes to everything.
Right,
of course, Gord, anything you want. But after he died, the sort of difficulty of the ask struck me, because Gord was the best friend and also second cousin of my husband, who had died a decade prior by suicide. So in effect, what I'd agreed to do was get on a plane, fly across the country, stand in front of 200 people, many of whom I hadn't heard a peep from in 10 years. And I was super nervous about it. But I did. I flew to Toronto, and I consider it to be a final gift from Gord, my friend, because what transpired was 72 hours, starting with the minute I sat down in my pew, of people saying, "Oh my goodness, you're Emma, you're Barry's widow. I'm so sorry I didn't reach out. I wanted to, but I couldn't think what to say. Have you been okay? I felt horrible that I didn't, then too much time passed and I was scared to say the wrong thing." So when I got on my plane ride home, and at this point in my career, I had spent 25 years building web and mobile communities for things like getting young people registered to vote, suicide prevention.
And you're also like an MIT graduate.
I survived MIT.
Yeah.
just barely. That's another story. So I mapped the whole thing. I actually mapped out all of Grief Coach on my plane ride home from Gordon's funeral, fully assuming that as soon as I had a Wi-Fi connection, once we were taxiing in, I would see that it already existed and that lots of people had created grief platforms like this. But we were taxiing back into Seattle. I Googled it and there was nothing. I couldn't believe it. So then I took, so then I started building it. So it's about 5 years ago now.
Why are we so bad at supporting people in grief and even grieving ourselves? Why do you think that?
I think every single day I talk to and hear from people who want to help someone who is grieving. I think that people are good, and we really and truly want to be there for each other when things are hard, but we, honest to goodness, have no idea how. We just haven't been taught. It's not rocket science, really. No one teaches us. It's scary. in general, in North America, we are really good at shying away from things that are difficult, scary, sad. We want people to just sort of cheer up and outcome the platitudes and press like on,
Or solve it. Try to
or
solve
try
it.
to solve it, or press like on
Here's a
Facebook or
casserole.
whatever. But we want to help. We do. So sometimes I think it's really just as simple as training, just helping people know what to do. I have a huge pet peeve around the, 10 top things not to say when someone dies. I think that the more we talk about what not to do, the more fearful of saying the wrong thing. And in fact, the only wrong thing to do is nothing, right? If someone that you love is in pain, you need to find a way. So we try to give support to the supporters and as well as to the grievers, and they want it. They're like, oh, thank you so much. I didn't know if I should do that. Okay, great. Thanks for the tip. I mean, we just don't know how.
And I think it is training because we're really good at saying the wrong things. We like, she's in a better place, or I mean, it's like, shut up. No, I want them here. But talk to me about the platform Grief Coach, and how does it work?
Sure. So Grief Coach is not an app. There's nothing to download. All you need is a phone that receives text messages. You go online and fill in a form. It takes about 10 minutes. You share as much or as little about your loss as you want. If all you want to do is tell us your name and your phone number and the name of the person who's died, you can get personalized texts at least twice a week for a whole year. Personalized based on lots of things, cause of death, age, relationship. So if your brother was in a car accident, that's different than if you lost your child to suicide, or if you had a stillbirth, let's say. And the magic for me is that the grieving person receives texts, but if they want to, they can add in up to 4 friends and family who want to help. And then they, in turn, all get a couple messages a week with tips and suggestions for how to help you. And the idea is that no one should ever have to grieve alone.
Now, can I gift someone this?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I think we make a really good sympathy gift. We last a lot longer than flowers, less than an hour's therapy, for the person to have personalized support all year long, and for their friends and family to be getting tips for helping them. So yeah, grief.coach/gift is a really, really lovely gift. We actually had a few just this morning come in, and I saw a daughter buying one for her mom and a mom buying one for her daughter.
Wow.
2 separate losses. And I just think it's a meaningful, thoughtful sympathy gift that acknowledges that you understand it's a long and difficult process, right? This is not, this is about truly trying to support you.
Well, and when I was on your website, I noticed how cheap it was, because it really, this year of support is really about the same of what you would send like in flowers to a funeral. It's not, it's $99. It's like not a lot of money.
I agree. I built it on purpose because I'd spent 20 something years in app and mobile development. This time I'm really proud of this, actually, because I had to stick to my guns and stay with text. While everyone was like, oh, it's an app, I wanted to do the absolute cheapest, most accessible, most affordable thing that I could do, because we have a major issue about people grieving alone and not being able to afford and access the support they need. If you don't live in a major center, then you don't have the support groups nearby, even if you wanted to go to a support group. Most people can't afford $150 an hour for therapy. And guess what? The people who experience the most losses the earliest in this country are less likely to be able to access that support. So it was designed to be affordable and scalable. And yeah, I mean, $99 for 5 people to get personalized support for a full year, I think is amazing.
So let's just say a good friend of mine lost her mother.
Yeah.
Can I go on there and sign up and get the support text, or how does that work?
Yep, you can do either. So you can get a subscription for her as a gift, and she would sign up, she starts getting texts, and she adds in whoever she likes. And all of those people can stop and start anytime just by texting stop start. And she owns that subscription for the year, so she can change it if one person wants to swap with someone else, or, anything she wants.
So tell me some of what you're hearing, the feedback that you're getting from. So, I mean, we were talking before we press record about how this is possibly saving marriages because it helps people communicate.
Well,
but I mean, tell to me a little bit about the feedback that you're getting.
Yeah. I know people think like, oh my gosh, Emma, isn't it really depressing work? And it isn't. It's real. And sometimes it's hard. And this weekend I had to pick the phone up and call a woman whose husband had been murdered in Utah. Like, it's hard. But it's not depressing because of the feedback. So yeah, the story I was sharing with you was a woman named Rachel. She's probably 30 something. Her mom died. She has a subscription. She's getting texts, and she adds in her husband as one of her supporters. So he's getting texts too. And she said, it's like, thank you so much for these texts you're sending me. It's really helping me process my mom's death. But I really want to thank you for the ones you're sending my husband, because he's being more patient now. He understands more of what I'm going through. And that's a big deal.
Huge.
Like, I had feedback this morning from a mom whose 23-year-old's best friend died of leukemia. And the mom is saying, thank you so much. Your texts have saved her. She's back in class. She's finding a way to talk about her grief, but it's also been a huge help to me as her mom, because it was teaching me stuff that I didn't know how to do.
Oh, wow.
So it feels good, Kimberly, to get those kind of pieces of feedback. And grief is, I think, a real opportunity for us all to like flex those muscles that need to be flexed. So it's like what you learn at 23 about how to process pain and how to get support and how to trust other people with the conversations that you need to have will serve you well through all kinds of things. I really think, and the same thing with I'm sort of joking about the marriages, but not really, because
you're not,
because it's a young marriage, and
right.
She's in pain and he's learning how to help her. That's like a big deal, right?
It's huge.
A story that I tell all the time was one of my very first subscribers. Her son was stillborn, and her best friend had flown across the country to be with her, to help with the baby. So the baby is stillborn, and she is, of course, devastated. First child. But I also describe her as preoccupied with how alone she felt. So she's sad because she hasn't brought her baby home, but she feels completely and utterly alone because her husband is like, won't talk about the baby and is drinking too much. And the best friend got back on the plane and said, quote, I don't know how to be with you when you're like this. So the new mom, purchases a grief coach subscription for herself, and she adds in the husband and the best friend. And 2 days later, like, I had just launched Grief Coach, right? 2 days later, I got a text from the friend, the one who got on the plane. And she said, thank you so much for understanding. This is hard for me too. I don't know what to do. And my heart was just like, oh. And so for a whole year, that friend received tips, suggestions, film clips, podcast. How to help your friend after a stillbirth. And I feel like that relationship now will be forged forever and forevermore.
Rich.
Whereas a year ago, it was fractured. Mm-hmm. She was on a plane and gone and just scared, just didn't know what to do.
Wow.
And it is hard. It is hard.
Yeah. We're really good at turning away when we don't know what to do or what to say. And we don't want to make a mistake, even though some of us really do. But this is just such vital, good information. How many people are using your platform?
We're up at, I should have checked this before we called. I think we're up at around 1,000. Like, every day we send out about 150 texts, something like that. So it's still early days. We have some.
But this is amazing, though. 1,000 people are getting these texts every day, those who are supporting, and it's $99.
I think it's a bargain, right? And I have a code. I also set up a discount code for your listeners. So
so we can track to see how many people are going to do this.
Anyone who goes to grief.coach and uses the code Death by Design will get 25% off. So then it's like $75 for a whole year for up to 5 people.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that, by the way. And I just think it's amazing. So let me ask you, do you where do you find, or how do people find you? Like, I mean, I'm sure you do surveys. Like, how did you find Grief Coach? I mean, how are people getting to you?
So we have a consumer product that people find in the usual ways. Instagram, we're quite popular on Instagram, for example. So a consumer finds us and signs up. And sometimes as the griever and sometimes as the supporter. We had a mom, this was another cool example. So this was 4 girlfriends who signed up for a Grief Coach subscription because their dear friend, lifelong girlfriend's daughter had died. The mom is not even getting out of bed, not moving, but the girlfriends are like, oh my God, what are we going to do? We don't know what to do. We're freaking out. So they purchased the subscription just for themselves. They never even added the mom.
Oh, wow.
The 4 girlfriends just spent the year getting their own tips and suggestions. And, as they said, that's 4 of us for a full year, $99 divided by that. It's a lot of support. So people find us online, usually if it's a consumer purchase. But we also work with organizations who purchase bulk packages. So Hospice of the Western Reserve was our first big hospice in Ohio.
Of course they were. They're like yeah, they're really good hospice. Sure.
Bill Finn and his team. So hospices in the US are required to provide bereavement care. Grief Coach is a way for them to support way more of the bereaved families that they work with consistently over time. So we're also now selling into businesses, which means the subscription numbers are coming up because people are actually being given a subscription by an organization like that.
Whoa. So hospices, organizations can come to you and say, hey, this is kind of how many people we are serving under our bereavement program. Yep. And you can customize a service specifically for them.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's sort of white label-ish, right? They give their code out to their families, bereaved family members. They sign up. They get a message saying Hospice of the Western Reserve is pleased to provide you with the support. And then all year long, they can also push out messages if they have a fundraiser or a workshop coming up.
That's brilliant.
For everybody. Thank you.
That is so brilliant. I mean, so have you had any death doulas ask to?
We've got some. Yes, I do have some death doulas. The stories are so. We have nonprofit, experience camps.
Yes.
So they usually do summer camps for grieving kids. Now they are offering those teenagers Grief Coach subscriptions. And of course, Grief Coach is great for teens because it's to their phone.
Oh, of course.
So that's really been cool. Last week, an interesting thing happened, which was sort of new, which was that a flooring company that lost a vice president suddenly. He died of a cardiac event, I think. And they wanted to do something for all of their employees because this guy was like the life of the company and the visionary and the guy who held the weekly conversations. Wow. So they're buying Grief Coach subscriptions for their employees to help them with the loss, which I thought was really special.
I love that.
I had a police department in Florida buy it for their officers. I mean, it's really amazing. People are so good. I'm telling you, we want to help and employ. I love that we give people a way to put that kind of support into people's hands.
Well, and I'm thinking totally on the box here, but even those who work in hospice, they see so many people die.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great element for the human resource in a hospice organization to provide this for all the staff, because especially the clinical staff who are at the bedside, and there's no other outlet to process that except around a table every 2 weeks, and it's more business these days. And I mean, I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful idea. Now, do you have some hospitals coming to you as well?
I think, yeah, we're close with our first sort of national healthcare organizations, hopefully in the next, month or so.
Funeral homes could be a brilliant idea for funeral homes.
I have a couple of funeral providers. It's really, we didn't launch so Grief Coach went live in February 2019, and we didn't start trying to do business subscriptions at all because I wanted to spend at least 6 months making sure it was working really well and the product was solid and so on, and building up our list of expert contributors. So we have someone from the American Association of Suicide Prevention helping with suicide messages, and a stillbirth person helping with our stillbirth messages. And so by the fall, I was feeling like this product is amazing. Let's start looking for those B2B sales. So kicked off that work November, December, and then COVID, right? So all of March, we basically had to stop everything and rejig the system to add an entirely new cause of death, which is something I never imagined doing.
But so perfect in a time.
So it's early.
I mean, it's so needed right now because we can't hug one another or touch one another or go to support groups. This is insanely perfect timing.
The timing is, I mean, I always thought that we had a massive gap in who needed grief support and who was receiving it. But now it's talked about in a different way for sure. We've got advocacy work and lots of stuff happening to try and get a White House Office of Bereavement Care.
I just saw that.
I think the national conversation is really growing, which is great. The media pickup is, of course, also increasing. People are, everyone from Rolling Stone to Harvard Business Review is talking about grief in a way that I couldn't have imagined a year ago. But at the same time, the kinds of organizations that we're working with are losing their funding, losing staff, totally overburdened. So it's a shifting landscape, and I'm glad that we're providing some support, but it's changing every week. It's a different thing.
Well, you mentioned you have some experts helping you with this messaging. Talk to me a little bit about how you involved these individuals in creating these messages for specific things. Is it based on what the information form, and you get these experts to kind of funnel these text messages based on what you say in your, survey when you fill out or sign up for Grief Coach?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a woman named Katie Hawkins-Garr who writes a lot about being a young widow. So she worked with me particularly on loss of a partner young. So if you put your age, when you fill the form in, if you choose to tell us your age, and if you choose to tell us that it was a partner that you've lost, then you will, therefore be getting messages particularly crafted and edited by her that pull from lots of different expert sources around what it is to lose a partner when you're young.
Now, do you have because grief is so vast. I mean, it could be about divorce. It could be about, are y'all reaching even those areas as well?
We're not yet.
There you go. I love it. Yet.
I do own the URL divorce.coach, but
oh, really?
But it's like 2 years ago, I really thought that I would want to expand into those areas, but here I am 2 years later. This problem, that death of someone that you love is so vast. There could be 20 grief coaches, and we would not be supporting everybody who needs it. So now I actually feel kind of more attached to the core grief work
and specific
than I did before. And kind of like what I was saying before, because what you learn about grief is helpful for all of those other things too. How you learn to think about these kinds of extreme feelings, I think, serve us all the way along. So the next most important for me will be anticipatory grief. So being able to support people after a diagnosis. Right now,
I love that.
Right now, it's just for after a death, but of course, there's all kinds of grief that happens before people.
You're going somewhere, kid. This is brilliant.
Thank you.
Brilliant. It is.
You're making my Monday.
Well, I tell you, I just am so thrilled that because there's so much gaps in this area, and I just think this is something something easy to do.
I think you're hitting the right point. It's that it's easy because I mean, honestly, there's lots of nights where I lie in bed and I think, oh my gosh, what more can I do for that woman in Utah whose husband was murdered? Right. It's not enough. It's just text messages and what else?
Right.
But in a way, the opposite is also true. It was built for ease and scale. And if we can get a little bit of support right into the pockets of everybody, then from there, people, either it's enough for them or they're happy that they're getting more support and understanding from their husband so they feel less alone with the pain, or the best friend comes back and is part of the journey after the stillbirth. But if they need more, it also gives you those nudges, right? Because the messages also change over time. So if you're still struggling with this particular thing, this might be a time to reach out. It's like, I need a better term. It's like of grief support. Like, it's a little bit, and it can tell you if you want more, right?
I love it.
I was just going to say, so I agree with you. I think it's the simplicity, actually, that it's accessible and easy to use, and it just pops right into your phone and you don't have to do anything.
I think it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So, I mean, what is your ultimate goal for Grief Coach? Is it to fill some of that empty space for those who are grieving a loss?
I don't want anyone to ever grieve alone. I don't want anyone to wonder if their friends blame them or don't love them, or if their husband isn't able to be part of this journey with them, or whatever it might be. No one should grieve alone. It seems to me that we would never have enough therapists. And even if we did, not everybody can afford and access therapy. We'll never have enough support groups. And even if we did, lots of people don't want to sit in a room of strangers. But 100% of the people I talk to want their best friend, their husband, their mom to understand more of what they're going through and to be patient with them over time, right? Not just for the first couple of weeks, but over time.
Over time. And that $99 is a full year, correct? Wow. And so let's give them the website and give them the code again. Thank you very much. And get people to start checking this out. I have actually some hospices that I think would be really interested in talking with you further. So maybe even...
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, maybe even give your email out or how you like to be corresponded. That would be fabulous.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for the opportunity. So the website is just grief.coach. You sign up there. It really takes about 10 minutes and the texts start right away. For your listeners, we've set up a 25% discount, and you just use the code Death by Design, all one word, and they'll get 25% off right away. And my email is emma@grief.coach. And I would love to hear from people. I am really proud of what we've done, but I also know it's early days and there's lots more to do. So I'm always really open to hear from hospices and organizations and individuals and see how we get it into more hands.
Emma, I think you're something special for sure. I thank you for what you're doing in this area. And it takes someone like you who has that savvy of technology and that background to bring us into the 21st century of how we should grieve and be supportive to those. So I just thank you so much for what you do, and check it out.
Thank you.
It's griefcoach.coach or grief.coach.
Grief.coach. Just grief.coach.
Coach. All right, check it out, people. And Emma, thank you so much for just...
Oh, thanks for having me.
This is amazing. And check it out. It's so inexpensive. And everyone, I think, should be able to gift this to someone. And how do we really put our arms around how we grieve in today's time, especially with COVID-19 and being alone and isolated. So I think this is just a perfect fit. Thanks again for what you're doing in this field.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. And remember, you're the designer. This podcast is produced by Jason Andre with 7 Season Films. If you're interested in telling your story via podcast, look him up.